Good morning. I appreciate the invitation to take part in the annual Economic Trends Breakfast in Milwaukee. I'm unable to be with you in person today, but I thank you for the opportunity to offer my thoughts on the economic challenges we face in Wisconsin and how public policy on the federal level is likely to affect your business. We've just had a momentous election in this country, one that changed the balance of power in Washington and in Madison. In order for the president to move forward and to govern, he will have to find a way to work with the Republican-controlled House of Representatives and with a more balanced Senate. But Republicans also must demonstrate humility. While voters clearly repudiated the agenda advanced by President Obama and Speaker Pelosi, they did not endorse a Republican Party that had clearly lost its way. We must earn back the trust of those we represent, and we must demonstrate a commitment to spending restraint and economic growth. Where the president and his party embrace good ideas, we're eager to work together to advance responsible reforms and restraints. But where our visions for the country are irreconcilable, we believe it is important to have a constructive debate with the American people on the choice of two futures. But this morning's event is not about elections or political debates. We're gathered to outline the economic realities of today. Many of the indicators we use to measure economic progress have improved, but I still worry about the significant challenges ahead. One of the biggest will come from our state capitals. Many state governments have mismanaged their money, and the recent economic crisis have made things much worse. As Washington works to get its own fiscal house in order, there is a terrific opportunity for state officials such as Governor Scott Walker to show leadership on this problem. The deeply indebted federal government will not be in a position to bail out profligate states. Policymakers at all levels of government must work together to restore balance and ensure prosperity. Another concern I have about our economic prospects in the new year is that the Federal Reserve has engaged in an unprecedented expansion of its balance sheet. I believe this latest round of quantitative easing is actually creating more economic uncertainty. If the money created to finance these asset purchases is not withdrawn in an expedited and predictable manner, the Fed risks higher inflation and a depreciated currency. On the other hand, exiting these programs too abruptly would also disrupt the economy. Despite these looming challenges, I think Republicans and Democrats can work together to make real progress toward a stronger economy in the year ahead. One place where I see potential for compromise is in the area of federal spending. Thankfully, we've already seen evidence that the president is cognizant of the message voters sent last November. Although he made his support for tax increases clear during the fall's campaign, we were able to find common ground on the need to prevent large tax increases from hitting families and businesses alike on January the 1st. But while large tax increases would have stifled the very growth and prosperity needed to ensure a sustainable fiscal path, we must now apply equal rigor to the spending side of the ledger. After two straight budget deficits in excess of $1 trillion, it is clear that one of our biggest budget priorities for this 112th Congress will be to get federal spending under control. Responsible budgeting does not require draconian cuts. Non-defense discretionary spending has risen by 24% in at least 2 years. An 84% increase when you add the stimulus on top. That's massive even for Washington. We must dial government back to levels we can afford, and there's plenty of room to cut. For your businesses, these cuts will mean less crowding out of the private sector as government retrenches. It will also mean a smaller shadow of debt hanging over the economy. I don't have to tell you that businesses invest for the long term. And right now, the biggest source of long-term uncertainty is all this debt that we are accumulating and the burdensome tax increases that you and I are afraid might be waiting down the pike. I believe we can work together to make a down payment to start closing our massive fiscal gap. But to truly tackle our biggest challenges and to get our country back on a path toward prosperity, we need to be honest about the choices we face. Our entitlement programs are growing too big, too fast, and yet last year Congress created a brand new healthcare entitlement that will, unless repealed, burden us with trillions in new liabilities. Worse, the penalties and mandates in the new healthcare law will increase costs for businesses, making it harder for them to expand and add workers. In my opinion, the law is bad healthcare policy, fiscal policy, and economic policy. We have a responsibility not just to repeal this law, but also to advance alternative reforms. Exploding healthcare costs remain a real problem. Policymakers must work to fix what's broken in healthcare without breaking what's working. For my part, I will continue to advance consumer-directed reforms. These reforms would put patients in the driver's seat and rely on market competition, not the federal government, to control costs. None of these challenges will be resolved overnight, but I remain firmly optimistic that our best days remain ahead of us. If the American people are offered a clear choice and allowed to have their say, I am confident that we can restore the promise of this exceptional nation. And I look forward to working with the President and his party where we can to advance economic reforms that promote low, reasonable tax rates, sound and honest money, fair, predictable regulations, and spending restraints and reforms. It is only by working together that we can put our economy back on the path toward prosperity. Thank you and have a nice event.